Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Jason Schroeder. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Yes. And, we're going to have a great conversation because we're going to talk about systems. You are very much a systems person, and I have a lot of questions about that. And first of all, I'm going to introduce you. So you're a seasoned construction leader, a lean consultant, author, the host of the Elevate Construction podcast, with over 2 decades of experience in roles ranging from field engineer to field operation director, and now you lead Elevate Construction, which is a company that dedicated to transforming the construction industry through training, coaching, and innovative systems like tact planning and the last planner system. It's all about systems, right?
Yep.
So I think that's very exciting. So let's start, first of all. I'm curious, what did you see that was needed in the construction arena, the construction field, that you decided, okay, I'm going to go be a consultant, I'm going to provide solutions? What did you see there?
It simply comes down to I was accidentally on really nice projects that had great systems and processes to follow. And when I started having more interaction with the wider industry, I found that somewhere in 2006, 7, 8, and beyond, we lost our training, our ability to train each other, or our adherence to those systems and processes, and that there were a lot of great people out there in the industry that didn't have those to fall back to or to rely on, and it was hurting people. And that's really what it is. So I don't know that I deserve any credit for any of the success that we've had from like a earned standpoint, but I accidentally, what I mean is I was on big projects with Hensel Phelps, large prisons, airports, hospitals, and I got to learn that there's an approach to every one of these projects. And if you follow the approach, if you follow the system, if you follow the process, you'll win every time. But when you put great people into a situation without the right system, they'll fail most of the time. And what I don't like is that people self-shame, or people shame other people, shame each other or blame each other. And really, I don't believe we should blame people. It's really the system or the process that needs to be fixed. And so that's what drove us and motivated us.
That's amazing. And I know you emphasize the importance of respect in the field of construction.
Correct. And there are great influencers out there, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, that talk about how to team, how to treat each other, how to be vulnerable, these softer topics. Our approach at Elevate Construction is to respect people through systems. Meaning, I feel like the ultimate disrespect of other human beings is to not provide them the environment, the tools, and the system to succeed. And
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
like,
and
what would happen if you don't have systems? Let's really picture that, paint that picture. What happens in a company, a construction company, when you don't have systems? What have you seen? What are the results of that?
Well, it's hopeless. Things go the way the system designs them to go, and the humans are the expended capital, bottom line. And most of the time, it affects people's bodies, their mental well-being, and their families at home. It's not a simple, trite, or an exaggerated thing to say that the suicide rate in construction is that high because we are a part of a faulty system. We use faulty systems in construction, from scheduling, from the way we treat people, our contracts, the whole nine. It human beings end up being the the ones that pay for those sins. I guess would
Yeah,
be a neat way to say that. And it doesn't matter, and this is the problem, is that you could take the best of the best throughout the world and put them all on a project with the wrong systems and they will still fail.
that's true. That's
And
very true. So why do you think there is an aversion to systems, like from your experience? What are some of the things that the managers, the superintendent, I mean, the people that are running the companies, what why are they not implementing systems?
well, first of all, so I don't think, well, in construction, there hasn't been great systems put together. So that's one of the things that we've really attempted to do at Elevate Construction, and we have stolen, I will say, concepts like the last planner, manufacturing lean techniques, um, just the best that we can from around the world, and put it into a working system based on a pattern. And there's a couple different things that I think people are running up against. Number one is education. Universities don't teach systems thinking. Universities don't teach the proper system. Universities, in fact, do teach the wrong system. They teach project management systems when what we need are production systems. And so that's really one of the big things. Another thing is that people internalize systems like it's themselves, meaning like it's really hard to criticize like the critical path method or the contracts or how we treat trade partners on a project site because somebody will learn that and then internalize it. And as soon as we start to criticize the system, they think, oh, you were criticizing me. I have to be defensive. No, let's protect these faulty systems. And that's never going to work. Those systems aren't the people, they are separate things and they need to be critiqued and criticized and torn
So what you're
apart.
saying is that we do have to create a safe environment where we have to then differentiate between the people
Yes.
and the systems.
Yes. And and I'll give you two more. The last one's touchy. I don't know if you want to delete that one, but
Sure. Mhm.
the third one is that human beings, we're biologically, and this is in a religious framework or a non-religious framework, biologically we are wired to reduce change, to save calories, to save brain space, to save focus. And so we don't like change. Human beings don't like change. And so learning these systems, implementing it seems hard, and sometimes the devil that you know is easier to deal with than the angel you don't. And
So
then
Jason, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your approach to change management. So obviously, when
okay.
we are, we approach it from different. You help construction with actual production systems. We document processes and procedures. Work a lot with people in the trade, professional services. But I agree with you that the most important thing is that people are actually going to apply the systems and utilize the systems. And sometimes, change can be hard. I wouldn't say
Yes.
that maybe not, but change can be hard. Some people do not want to change. Some people will embrace the change. Some people will not want to change. So what methodology have you found, or what systems have you found that work in order to implement the change?
Well, it has to be a part of the culture. You already know all of these answers, but it has to be a part
But
of the
I do,
culture.
but we want to enlighten our listeners.
Yeah, no problem. So it has to be a part of the culture. We've all heard the culture will eat strategy for breakfast. If the founders, the leader of the company, and the commonly accepted behaviors and actions of the social group in the company are that we fall in love with the problems, we fall in love with fixing the problems, and we fall in love with innovation, then it's fairly easy to balance a team's capacity with how fast they actually innovate and improve. If the leadership isn't setting the example, it is not the culture. There's no motivation. There will be no change. Like that's just a fact
Mhm.
because human beings are survival. Um, we're and like I said, this falls inside a religious or a non-religious paradigm because either way, we are survival machines and we do evolve. Human beings are learning, the brain is a learning machine, and what it's learning to do is self-perpetuate and stay alive. And so if the best way in a company to stay alive is to hide and to stay the same, that's what human beings will do. In a company, if the safest place to be is to innovate and learn and grow, then that's what they will do. And so it has to be the culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And real quick, I have to make this point, please, if you don't mind, is that we in Western culture, and I'm not being critical of it, but I'm just saying it is what it is. In Western culture, like we shame people, we blame people. Governments blame people, religions blame people, organizations blame people. Everybody blames people, and we live in a punishment culture. And really, what we have to do is say, no, the person is good. We blame the system. And then somebody, let me just make this quick point. Somebody would say, well, yeah, Jason, there are serial killers and bad people out there. Yeah, totally understand. If you strip away our genetic wiring, our nature and nurture, our environment, our like I said, genetic coding, all of the behaviors behind every human being is something good and wonderful and fantastic. So,
You know what? I share that with you 100%. Human
exactly.
beings are basically good. Absolutely. And you're right. And when you treat somebody, I mean, it is how you want to be treated, right? Treat others that way, because you don't want to be, I mean, I don't want to be yelled at when I'm being taught something. And if
Nope.
I make a mistake, I want somebody to point it out to me nicely and show me the right way and work with me until I actually get it. And I think that is a key component that is missing from good training.
Yes. So,
And
so
another thing, Jason, I also want to mention, now we are talking about this a little bit more philosophical, what I also believe, and I'm sure you will share that as well, is you have to understand the why behind things. And that's what you
yes,
mentioned, like in a university, it's like, you basically are fed and then you have to like, you have to put it back on the exam paper, or you're not going to meet, you're not going to pass the exam, but you really have to understand the why behind things. And I asked you about change management, and you talked about culture. And I can tell you that what I believe in terms of change management, the number one thing is to explain also the why behind it. Because
sure.
when a person understands the why, they will want to then do it because they decide to do it, not because somebody forced them to do it.
Agreed. And then to your point, the other part of that is which builds on your point, is even if they understand the why, if they don't have the system to implement the why, it won't happen on that end either. And
That's
so
right.
I love that. That's the pattern in the book Switch, where you have to have the intellect, the motivation, and the circumstances, right? So I love that. Totally agree.
Absolutely. Now, I know you're a lean consultant, you use lean principles. So if our listeners are not familiar with the lean principles, where should they start? Like, where would you start a company that does not use lean principles to actually operate with lean principles?
So that's a great comment. The book, The Goal. Eliyahu Goldratt and his family, uh, um, yeah, his daughter and his son, I think Remy, and then Dr. Ashlag, like absolutely fantastic human beings. They are perpetuating the concept of Goldrat's rules of flow, and that is the most accurate lean system that I've ever encountered. Everything comes down to one piece flow, actually looking at the flow of the product or the flow unit, and then increasing the flow by removing the constraints or the limiting factors around that flow. That's the best place that I would go look. The simplest way for me to understand lean, like some people call it learning, which is correct. Some people call it doing more of what makes sense and less of what doesn't. I love all of that. Um, Lean, in my opinion, for a company, if this is the leadership and these are the boots on the ground, the closer leadership is to the boots on the ground, the more lean they are, the more disconnected, the more classical management they are, in my opinion. Because once we are connected and there's feedback loops, we will start to see those concepts of flow and the limiting factors. That's I would start with Goldrat's work myself.
I think it's a fabulous advice. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So I know you mentioned throughout in that the importance of reading and education. And one of the things that you're known for, I mean, if somebody goes to YouTube right now and look for a construction consultant or questions about construction, you're number one there. You definitely education, you take education to heart and you educate. That's the first thing you do, is to educate. And I think it's a good place here to give a big shout out to Nate Woodbury, who actually connected us. We met through Nate. So thank you, Nate. I recorded a fantastic podcast with Nate. He's a master at creating YouTube, basically dominating YouTube channels. And obviously, Jason, you are a living testimony to that. And you can say a few words here to validate that. But I am curious about that approach, like how important is education? I mean, of course, this is a rhetorical question, it's important, but I want to hear your viewpoint of why education is so empowering, especially in the construction industry.
That's fantastic. I heard a quote once that said, "You will not, or people will not rise to the level of their ambitions; they will fall to the level of their training." And I really, really believe that the at Hensel Phelps, to keep shouting them out, you go through weeks and weeks of training continuously. They're all about skills, they're about the processes, they're about the systems, and they will train you from scratch. They build builders from scratch. They don't have to hire outside of the industry. And so it's absolutely crucial. It's one of the key three things that are missing in the industry that make projects in construction fail, according to the book, How Big Things Get Done. And it really just is about elevating human beings. We really don't in construction build buildings. We build humans that build buildings. And the industry's lost sight of that. They think, hey, I can just take anybody and make them figure it out. That's never going to work. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is disease and frustration and failure. And then in reference to the YouTube channel, Nate has an amazing strategy. If you'll allow me to say two quick things.
Absolutely.
Gary Vee one time said that those of you who are on social media who are willing to give away everything you know to the point where they don't need you will be the ones that have the most clients. And that is definitely what we found to be true. We give everything away. There's nothing that we have that we don't give away, and people still contact us and we still have a thriving business. And then probably the last thing that I want to say, which I hope is not controversial, like we're huge Taylor Swift fans over here at Elevate Construction. People wonder why. It's not about the music. It's she loves her listeners, like falls in love with them, loves them to their very core. She'll do music recording sessions with them. She had a goal to go meet 500,000 of her listeners personally. She out of everything that you can criticize her for, she loves her listeners. And Nate loves the YouTube viewers. The topics will be what people are asking for. It will be searchable. It will be short. It will be concise. There will be value in every point in the video. And so my point with education is the way we communicate the education is most of the time by giving it away for free. And the second thing is falling in love with the person that you're trying to educate, because as soon as we judge someone, we've lost the ability to influence them. So those are my takes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jason, if people want to hear more, learn more about you, where should they go?
So the Jason Schroeder YouTube channel is fantastic. Jason Schroeder on LinkedIn. By the way, that sounds self-aggrandizing, but you have a better connection with listeners when it's your personal brand, your personal name. And then the Elevate Construction podcast. And yeah, anybody can reach out to me at any time. We have a nice website, elevateconstructionist.com. And like I tell everybody, we're willing to share anything that we have. The funny joke is looking's free, touching's going to cost you. If we have to fly somewhere, we have to charge somebody. But if it's something that we can send them, we'll just do that for free, because that's what I think our industry needs.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. And thank you for everything that you do. You definitely, I can see that you genuinely want to create, you want to create a better world, and you want to elevate the construction industry. And if our listeners are also not just from the construction industry, they can also take it. It's elevate any industry and elevate beings. So thank you
yes,
so much.
awesome. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.